Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hey, what's up, Lock Shoppers? Welcome to the program. Labor Day weekend in the Canadian Football League is upon us, and we are all over it with the Week 13 CFL lines and picks. Here on the Lock Shop, Andrew Paterson along with Matthew Iwanyk, and shout out to everybody in chat. Duck Dad needs a winner badly. He can't take another day of generic KD. We're going to try and help you out today, Duck Dad, and see if we can bang out a few winners for Labor Day weekend in the CFL. Matty, what's up? Congratulations on 10K to you and the entire crew.
I appreciate that. It was fun. I was a little worried going into this week. We were a couple hundred away, but it wasn't moving much. And then yesterday, I don't know, Dusty tweeted about it, and it was coming along. So it's nice that year two is going to start next week, and we could say that we're over 10K. And as we expand another 5 hours of programming on Tuesday, it's going to be a lot of fun. So appreciate that. And also, what a great weekend! One of the best weekends of the year. Like Saturdays, whatever, cool. Touchdown Pacific. Yeah, awesome. BC Ottawa. Who cares? It's Sunday. It's Monday. It's the 3 games. There's nothing like it.
It is an amazing time. I mean, I've said this a couple times on WST, but like, I don't know about you. When I was a kid, like that last week of August was just paralyzing anxiety, realizing that you're about to go back to school for another 10 months. It's the exact opposite right now. We get to Labor Day weekend, which is the most fun weekend in the Canadian Football League, and then you get back on a short week, and NFL football is back on Thursday. And I just realized we've got a Friday game too next week in the National Football League.
Yeah, in Brazil.
Is that what city? Is that in Rio or?
I want to say it was São Paulo or whatever, but
Sao Paulo?
Let me check.
But
maybe
yeah, Eagles
Rio.
and Packers. Eagles
Sao
and
Paulo.
Packers on
Yep.
Friday night. So, hey, the NFL, they know every one of these primetime games means huge money, and not to mention the international games.
Well, I will say this. I've thrown this out there for a few months now. And this goes to, we saw it in COVID when they had to play that Tuesday game or Wednesday games or whatever, and people watched. With the expansion to 18 weeks, I will say this is my prediction, is that one day the NFL will be an everyday league. They will play from September through to March. I got to take away the playoffs. I guess that changes a bit. But they will find a way to play every day will just be a primetime game. And they'll space out the games in some way so that it's 7 days between games or 6 days between games. But the NFL is seeing how everyone will just watch them at any given moment. They've now taken over Christmas. The NBA has not been able to do it. Like, and NFL this year's like, we're taking Christmas. And the NBA is just like, we can't do anything about that. They played Black Friday last year, which has historically been the college game of Thanksgiving weekend down south. They've taken it. Now they're playing this Friday game to start the season. I will call it right now that the one day within the next 15 to 20 years, the NFL will play Sunday through Saturday. And there's nothing anyone could do about it.
I'll go on the other side of that. Like, logistically, I don't know if it's even possible.
Why not? You give the teams that play on the Monday one week, they're playing on the Tuesday, Wednesday the next week type thing. You know, the teams that play, like, there's
a few short weeks. Well, the Chiefs are they are playing a Friday game the week before Christmas, and then play Christmas Day on Wednesday, which I believe is the first ever Wednesday game in the history of the NFL. Like, I think there'll be some spots where you'll be onto it. I mean, the entire schedule, I'm out on that.
Every game will be prime time, and every game will have 40, 50 million people watching.
Hey,
you know,
and we'll think of the Jamar Chase in 10 years will be holding out for $100 million a year deal as opposed to getting 38, 39, or 40 right now. Still waiting to see how that works out. How about that for a flex, eh? He says, yeah, I'll be there at practice tomorrow. Shows up 13 minutes late in street clothes, letting them know a little bit more that, well, listen, I'm here at practice, but I need that new deal. Brandon Ayuk as well. It's a lot. Are you a big NFL fantasy guy?
I used to be. I used to be in like 5-6 leagues, and then it got to a point where I just felt like I was constantly cheering for and against my teams.
Everyone. Yeah.
It just and I stopped. It came down to there was a KC Denver game I think I was watching. I need the Denver Broncos defense to make a play, and I was just so cheering on this Broncos defense. I realized I don't care about the Broncos. I don't give a damn. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, so I'm down to one. I have one fantasy league. It's a 16-team 5-keeper. It's tough. I got to the finals last year, lost in the championship. I've never won it. Dusty is in it. He's done some great things. He had a little bit of a dynasty in this league, but I've limited myself now to one. And it's, to me, the Baltimore Ravens, who I care about first and foremost. You and I will have some beef on Thursday next week.
I was about to say a week today, it's on. How are you feeling about the Ravens this year? I mean, the addition of Derrick Henry certainly adds an incredible dynamic to a backfield that was already a team that could, in most cases, run the football. Obviously the playoff game last year against Kansas City, the running game was a big topic of conversation, but Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry.
Yeah, he helps the offense. The only concern I have about the offense, though, is the most important part, which is in the trenches, and it's the O-line. They lost a few guys, and I don't know if they've replaced them and if that O-line is strong enough. I remember seeing one report this week or this month where it was a scrimmage offense-defense, and the defense was making Lamar Jackson run all over the place, and it wasn't by design. Like, it was the O-line wasn't doing a good enough job, and I don't know if the Ravens did enough to fix the offensive line that needed to be fixed, or with the losses that they had on it. So if you don't have an O-line protecting Lamar Jackson, that makes the passing game tough, and it's not going to open up holes for Derrick Henry because he's not a guy that's going to run to the outside and get it. He's got to go up the middle. So it's going to come down to the first 3-4 weeks for me to watching. Is that O-line doing its job? And if it is, then I feel really good. I think it goes Chiefs number 1, Bills number 2. I'd go Ravens number 3. If their O-line's not there, it's going to be a rough year for the Baltimore Ravens unless Eric DeCosta could go out there and find some sort of trade to help fix that offensive line or some sort of free agency moves. So we will see. And for Kansas City didn't have a great regular season last year, but they got it done when it mattered, and that's all that matters. How are you feeling about the Chiefs this year?
I'm fired up.
By the way, I should say not a great regular season by Chiefs standards.
Yeah,
I need to throw that out there. It was a really good regular season, but by Chiefs standards, not at where it was the years prior.
For the first time ever, they had to go on the road through the playoffs. I mean, Mahomes, they win the AFC West every year and usually get the top seed and see you at Arrowhead for the AFC Championship game. And it was a very different story this year. It's super exciting. They've had with the exception of some off-field stuff like Rashee Rice, they've had a great offseason. I mean, think about last year, that team, the receiver room was, among the worst in the National Football League. I mean, Kadarius Toney famously single-handedly lost a football game against the Detroit Lions. I mean, we joked that if he had just played corner in that game and batted every pass down that went to him, he would have won. So he's gone right now. I mean, Hollywood Brown, when he gets back in, I think is going to be a real dynamic player for Mahomes. You've got this Xavier Worthy, and now Juju Smith-Schuster's in the mix. So I think certainly Mahomes is going to have far more weapons. The thing that's different about this Kansas City team than the other ones is the defense. I mean, the defense was what got Kansas City through a really tough period, really the toughest offensively in the Mahomes era. And pretty much everybody's back. Chris Jones isn't holding out. They're ready to go. And listen, they're on the verge. They have the opportunity to do something no team has ever done before and win 3 straight Super Bowls. And I'd just like to thank everybody that voted for Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill ahead of Patrick Mahomes on the top players list. And a special thank you to the Raiders for that idiotic stunt with the Kermit Muppet with the Mahomes thing on it. Just to add a little bit more fuel to the fire to get going. But listen, they're the favorites for a reason. They've done it. They've got, an all-time Hall of Fame coach and QB combo. I can't wait to get on it. But I'll tell you what, this is going to be a real tough game next week. I mean, I think the Ravens in particular, feel like I'm sure they can't wait to get another crack at Kansas City. Although even if they win that game, they'll probably just think back of the missed opportunity at home last year in the playoffs. Just a quick question on the personnel, like from a fantasy perspective. I mean, you know the Ravens well. Lamar's going to get his. Derrick Henry's going to be startable every week. Do you have any interest in the receivers? I mean, Zay Flowers is a guy that, certainly had a few breakout games last year. Bateman, Aguilar. Do you have any interest in the Baltimore passing game, in particular for the receivers?
I will throw this out there. I always am very skeptical of or hesitant to give out advice on the Baltimore Ravens because I'm very harsh on my team. I'm very harsh on the Ravens, and I will always give that disclaimer. Naturally, Mark Andrews is a guy that you would want in tight end. He is a top 5-6 tight end in the National Football League. So you would look at him. When it comes to the actual receivers, unless you get Zay Flowers, I wouldn't touch anyone else almost. Like I would, there's a few options, but I don't know. The Ravens, to me, he can pass. Lamar does pass. He's really good at passing. We saw that evolution, I think, fully come to fruition last year where he can throw. You do got Bateman. I'm not touching Aguilar. I'm not touching those other guys just yet. Zay Flowers, maybe Bateman would be the guys I would look at. Flowers would definitely be the guy. I wouldn't pass on him if he's there. Same with Mark Andrews. Those are the two. But I think it's Derrick. I think you're going to see a little bit of that run maybe going again this year because you got Lamar Jackson, but you bring in Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry could run the football. So even like this is a team that I think when they get close to the goal line, he'll get the ball and he'll go in. And I don't know if I could see the passing touchdowns coming down because the rushing touchdowns will come up.
What's the word on Andrews? I mean, they're expecting him to miss a few weeks at the start of the season.
I'll have to double check because he got in a car accident.
He's been hurt. I mean, they have him listed as questionable, but certainly, the way that he has been treated in fantasy drafts. I mean, the guy has been so good and so consistent. One other guy is a bit of a sleeper, and again, it's not often you pick a backup tight end. I do think that Isaiah Likely, though, has a pretty high upside, especially if Andrews misses any time. He'd be an interesting guy to keep an eye on. But, we got 7 days to get ready for Chiefs-Ravens. We've only got a couple to get to for CFL Labor Day weekend. Listen, before we get into the game, some pretty big news around the league. Matthew Betts came back.
Yeah.
He's signed with the BC Lions, and, man, he cannot get there and get onto that defensive line soon enough right now because I know all the conversation is about Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams and the fact that they've lost these 5 straight games. I get it. Their offense needs to pick it up, and we'll see what happens with the QB spot, but their defense could use to mix in a stop or two. Their defense has been getting lit up over the course of this losing streak, and I do wonder how much of an impact Betts can make, but when you think about the crazy season that he had last year, he'll be welcomed back in open arms. No idea how they're making this work amongst the salary cap. There might be a fine or two. Oh, they're going to be over all right. They could be a record amount over. I think they were already over.
Farhan had something on it yesterday. I wonder if I could quickly find it here. Because he had something on that full... Here it is. Obviously, what Farhan says when it comes to the salary cap, a home game will cover the cost of Betts' salary and any fine. The Lions were tight to the cap before signing Rourke Betts, so let's say they finished the season $350 over the cap and are also fined a first-round pick. They'll at least get back what they traded one of their QBs this offseason. Plus, they'll get another second for being the top 2 for snaps played by a Canadian, which is probably going to be Winnipeg and BC yet again. I would assume that gets that second for the most Canadians. But yeah, probably looking at a first-round pick. But it's their home Grey Cup. They need to do everything they can. Defensively, they've become the 8th best defense in the Canadian Football League. Only the Edmonton Elks have a worse defense, who themselves have picked it up, but they give up over 380 yards per game. 5-game losing streak. They absolutely need Matthew Betts. You're right. Nathan Rourke hasn't been good enough. The offense isn't doing their job, but the BC Lions defense has not been what I think people were expecting this Lions defense was going to be this season, which was a defense that was going to be tough to score points against. And this overall, the BC Lions look like actually, I don't know, is average a football team will go with? Like, they don't look good. They don't have, there's not even those flashes right now of a couple games where you go like, this is a team that at just a couple mistakes, like maybe like the Elks at the beginning of the year, you'd be like, they just found ways over 2-3 plays to lose football games. The BC Lions just aren't a good football team right now. And they need Matthew Betts, but they also, like, overall, that team needs a real little bit of reset because they're letting this whole year slip away mightily quick right now.
Well, and you think, I mean, they were 5-1 on top of the league, looking like the best team in the West, certainly, and right there with Montreal for the top teams in the league. And the bottom's fallen out on them in the last 5 weeks. I mean, do you think they can turn it around? They certainly have the talent. I think we all know that.
It comes down, okay, one, can Nathan Rourke turn it around this week? Can Nathan Rourke start being more of a Nathan Rourke that we've seen? Beyond, then it becomes, if not, does Rick Campbell have it in him to bench Nathan Rourke to go to Vernon Adams Jr.? Does that organization have it in them to, if it doesn't get going this week, to make that move to go to VA? Because if VA goes out there,
what's at stake. I think that's what's at stake in Touchdown Pacific on 100%. Saturday, personally.
But the question I would throw is Rick Campbell though going to be the coach that's going to make that move? Or are we just going to talk about it and they've given all this money to Nathan Rourke, they're going to stick with Nathan Rourke? Like, I would lean towards they would go to VA potentially after, if they lose this game. But I don't know. You lose 6 in a row. I don't know if you could fully turn that around. The benefit is they do have
a 5-7. Elks are coming right now.
Yeah. They do play a lot of Eastern teams coming up. So maybe they have Hamilton in there and they could grab a few wins. But with Hamilton, they'll look what they did with the Bombers last week. So I felt like if you asked me last week, I'd say, yeah, BC's going to turn this around. You ask me today right now, I'm more on it's 50-50. Like there's a large part of me that's going, I don't think the Lions will turn this around. That they'll maybe find a way to still sneak into the playoffs, but I don't think we're talking about them as a real threat in the playoffs.
Well, let's get right to it. Touchdown Pacific kicks off CFL Labor Day weekend. Victoria, beautiful Victoria, BC. Dusty's on his way there right now to be part of the festivities tomorrow and call the game. The BC Lions are a 3-point favorite. But what's interesting about this, Maddie, though, you're laying 3 and getting plus 106. Ottawa plus 3 is minus 128. Which tells me that in the next, unless this goes the other way, we're about to get 2.5. Very rarely will you see a number laid out like this where there's such a big gap, minus 128 on one side and plus 106. I would imagine that an adjusted spread probably is coming in. Let's assume it's 3 right now, and you're getting, as I said, more than plus money on BC right now. Ottawa just quietly keeps on winning football games. It's a unique setting. I know it'll feel like a home game, but a very different home game for the British Columbia Lions. Ottawa's the team that's rolling. BC's in free fall right now. Can Nathan Rourke keep the starting job and get this team back into the win column to try to turn this around, as we've been discussing, and salvage this season?
I'm actually surprised by this line largely because of what you just said. Ottawa's rolling, BC's reeling. And yes, it's out west. Yes, it's going to be in such a unique situation, Barn. And I know there's a lot of talent on the BC Lions, but I have to respect the Ottawa Red Blacks now. I got to respect what they're doing. They've gone out. They've got the 7-2-1 record. It's not like they've beaten nobody. They found a way to get a win. They looked really good last weekend against BC. Again, I understand that they have to go across the country to play in this game. But if you're going to tell me that I can get Ottawa with a plus 3, they could lose a very close game in this one. They could lose by a point or something, and you still cover this. I'm taking Ottawa all day on this one. The fact that I'm getting plus money with where the Red Blacks are right now and where the BC Lions are right now, this isn't like when I saw this, I looked at it yesterday. I was surprised by it personally. So I would take Ottawa plus 3.
I think there's a lot of people feeling the same way you are. And I just was looking because I am on BC in this game. I don't feel great about it, but I don't know. I'm waiting for this team to show up and be anything like the team we saw earlier on in the season. I do believe in Nathan Rourke. I think that he can get the job done, and they're back at home. This is the time for them to win. But just as far as the line goes, so I'm not sure when this went in, either late Tuesday night or maybe yesterday morning. But BC was -3, but it was -110. So it's gone from -110 to +106, which is very significant. I think they're trying to just keep the number as the number and get it on both sides, because when you go from 3 to 2.5 in a game that we expect to be close, I mean, that could be significant, especially considering BC opened at -3.5. If they go down to -2.5, you will have people on both sides with the potential of hitting that middle at 3 points. I think we're going to find out a lot about Nate. Like, listen, I shouldn't say we're not going to find out a lot about Nathan Rourke, but just where he's at right now and the fight left in this football team. I know that there's talk about Betts actually being in the lineup, and for most other positions, I think that would be somewhat unrealistic. But when all you have to do is put the ear flaps back and go with the quarterback, I mean, I think he could go in and make an impact right off the bat. I feel bad for saying this about Ottawa because they've continued to prove people wrong all year long. They have been absolutely the team to bet on throughout the season. But there is part of me that feels like, okay, the other shoe is going to drop. And listen, BC just did not have any answers last week against Ottawa defensively. And credit to them, the offensive staff, Drew Brown. It's very tough to beat a team 2 times in a row. BC is going to be a very, very desperate team. I think I feel better betting them the money line because I do think this game is going to be really close. But it's hard for me to feel the BC Lions are going to win and take the other side knowing where the spread is at. So I am going to go with BC in this game. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind being wrong and seeing Ottawa get this win and seeing BC fall to 5-7. That would be very good for fans in Winnipeg and in Edmonton.
Yeah, big time. Even Saskatchewan, you throw it out there. It's everyone would be loving that. So, I just, if they don't do it now, I don't know when for BC. I'll say that. If they can't get it done on Saturday, I don't know when they'll be able to get this going.
What do we have any idea how big the stadium is going to be? Like how many people are going to be at this Touchdown Pacific?
Very small. I'll quickly look it up here. Royal Athletic Park is where they're playing.
It must throw in like some temporary stands, I'd imagine.
Yeah, with temporary, according to Wikipedia, it could get 10,000 for soccer. So it would be about the same, I would say, for Canadian football. So maybe 10,000 or so.
Well, very intimate. I mean, what Dusty's press box is going to be like?
Well, it's going to be the closest he's ever been.
He'll just be sitting in the stands with a
14,000. 14,000.
Okay.
So there'll be more there than at Argos game.
You ever been to Vic?
No, actually, I haven't.
Neither have I. It looks like a really, really beautiful place.
I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Well, I know my pals from the Lions, Nick Kowalski and Matt Baker, are all fired up to get out there. And, I do sort of think, and again, I'm not wishing good things for the Lions being here in the Peg, but I think maybe the timing of this trip is great for them. Just getting away from the normal road game. It's not a home game. You're not going too far, but listen, it'll be special. Hopefully they can, I think for their perspective, they can bring that team together, rally behind Nathan Rourke. I think it is important to note that, an extra week of practice, another game under his belt, you would think that will help him in this game. But as I said, the Ottawa Redblacks have been proving people wrong all season long. I wouldn't be surprised if they do it to me again this week, but I'm going to ride with BC.
I'm just looking at BC's schedule. If they can't get it done this week, they go to Montreal next week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That could be 5-8.
They need this. They need this. Montreal coming off of a bye in a game. They squeak one out against Edmonton. BC needs this one big time.
If you do like BC and you don't mind the -3, you're getting plus 106 right now on the Lions. I'll be taking BC. Maddie's on Ottawa. And then we get to Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. And you've got no skin in the game in this one. What do you think about the line being 2.5 for Saskatchewan? I mean, essentially, they're getting the 3 points for the home field, and it says the Bombers might be a half-point favorite on a neutral field. Make sense?
Yeah, it's also saying like this with the way the Bombers just squeaked one out against Hamilton last week. Maybe there's some concern, and Zach Collaros not looking good until the final drive. Maybe there's the concern here. I'm surprised that it is the Winnipeg is the plus 2.5 dogs in this one. They are like Ottawa. They're winning games right now. They're playing really well for the most part. They're getting things done. While Saskatchewan, they're like BC. They're reeling. They're losing football games or tying football games. And there's a lot that's going on with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. You mentioned it last week or the week prior that it works out where if the Bombers win this game, next week at home, they could get Mike O'Shea's 100th win. Like there's a lot on the.
He had a 100th win. It would be
for the record.
Bud Grant for the all-time leader in franchise history. Bud's got a statue outside the stadium.
So this game is to tie him, Bud Grant. Next game is to pass Bud Grant. So he's got to win 2 more. And as you put, like to do it against your big rival in the Saskatchewan Roughriders, there's a little extra there. I know the Riders have generally a good rush defense. They struggled against Edmonton a few weeks ago, and Brady is just playing. While he's not getting touchdowns, Brady, since he's come back from injury and after a couple weeks, he's been Brady again. I think it's actually a little quiet of how good Brady has been running the football for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So I look at this game, and the Bombers' defense is just overall really strong. The Bombers' defense has really stepped it up over the last number of weeks, and they're back to being that Bombers' defense that we've seen for a number of years. So, like Ottawa to me, that they're playing really well. Winnipeg to me is trending in the better direction than where the Saskatchewan Roughriders are going. They're reeling, and so I get plus 2.5 on the Bombers with that chance for Mike O'Shea to tie Bud Grant franchise record. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, Bombers plus 116 on the money line to win the game, plus 2.5 at minus 106. And listen, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the Bombers in this one as well. They did lose in Saskatchewan 19-9 earlier this season. It was stunning to realize that was the last time the Saskatchewan Roughriders won a football game. Much like BC, it has been about a month and a half since they actually won. I mean, they do have that one tie. Winnipeg, first of all, we had that really scary situation with Stanley Bryant last week. Yep. He hasn't practiced this week, but Mike O'Shea has said things are good. He's recovering, and he is expected to play. That is massive for Zach Collaros. It was interesting, and this is credit to Brady Oliveira. Even with the diminished offensive line on Friday, Brady was still running the football very, very effectively.
I was just looking up those stats for that.
Yeah, it was the 3 picks of Zach Collaros that turned that game around and made it close and put them in a situation that they had to pull out of the fire late. I do think the way they won the game, though, will help them in similar situations later on. And it just sort of reinforces that confidence that a team that has done so much winning the last number of years, but that wasn't earlier on in the season, kind of getting back to themselves. A couple real key things for the Bombers this week. Dalton Schoen's not coming back. He's out for the season. But Drew Wolodarski's back. And Wolodarski is not, the dynamic Kenny Lawler, Dalton Schoen, but man, he's a reliable guy that has a great connection with Zach Collaros. That will definitely help Zach. And I think now with Kenny Lawler, Nick Dembski, Wolodarski, looks like Josh Johnson's going to be the other starter. They're in as good of a position as they've been when it comes to the wide receiver room and the ability to play all season long. That's a real positive for Winnipeg. And then on the other side, Adam Bighill looks to be back. And even when Bighill was out, the defense was playing really well. But in a huge game like this, they need their defensive leader out there. He'll be a very, very welcome addition back to the Blue Bomber D. So health-wise, they're getting a bit healthier, which is a great bit of news for Winnipeg. But to me, it's going to come down to whether they can, take care of the football. better than they have before. I mean, the one thing that you could pretty much count on in previous seasons was that the Bombers weren't going to beat themselves. And they've done that a number of times this year, and they almost did it on Friday. So there is still a lot of work to be done, and they're still not even a 500 football team right now at 5-6. I'll say this about the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Matt, and let me ask you this. How different would the narrative be around the Riders going into this game if 2 weeks ago Brett Lowther didn't throw up all over himself, missing 4 kicks and having one of those returned? Because they absolutely outplayed the Montreal Alouettes offensively and defensively, and they lost that game. And it wasn't even a huge special teams breakdown. It was one terrible night by a guy that can have a big effect on the game. Like, I was looking, the August awards came out. Trevor Harris was given the top quarterback. He played 2 games. He wasn't particularly great last week. It was all about that Montreal game. So we have seen them do it, but they didn't win. And now they haven't won. We can say, hey, they haven't won since the Bomber game before. Like, I do think that unlike BC, Saskatchewan has been better than BC over this last little while. And again, it's a results-based business. They found ways to lose, and that was a spectacular one. But I kind of think that maybe people are off of Saskatchewan more. I still think they're a very formidable opponent and have the ability to beat any team in the league, especially at home.
Well, they're kind of having a little bit of a flip season of the Elks, where they were winning all those games early, but now they're finding ways to lose or tie football games. There's the tie against Ottawa. There's the Montreal because of Brett Lowther. Even last week, they got off to a really nice lead against the Toronto Argonauts. And then they couldn't put up points. And the Argos were able to chip away and found a way to win that football game. But if Lowther makes those kicks, would it change the narrative? My gut says still no, because they've lost so many of the games still. Like, there's so many other losses in there that it's just one extra dub. But you could be right. Maybe that would change a little bit of our narrative going into this one. It might also have, if they win that game, they might go in Toronto and find a way to win that football game in themselves, just because they're feeling a little bit better. Those type of losses could really turn a season around. The one benefit of the doubt I will give the Saskatchewan Roughriders, it does feel like there's a lot of times in the past where we get into this Labor Day and, a little bit, Winnipeg, they've won, like last year they lost. I know Winnipeg won a little bit before that, but I feel like Saskatchewan does have a probably just gut saying that overall they've had a good record on Labor Day. They find a way they show up on this one. So that would be the one benefit of the doubt I would give to the Riders. But I love defenses, 2 really good defenses going at it, but I like where the Bombers defense is more than where I like where the Saskatchewan defense is. And also, I don't think Zach Collaros is throwing 3 picks again.
When I was talking to Dusty yesterday, if you missed it, he loves the under in this game. And I can't say I really disagree. I mean, it's by far the lowest total, 47.5. Both defenses are really good. They put up 28 points total in the game earlier this season. And I think back to many, many games in this situation on this weekend in Regina, and it's, 19-15, 22-20. Just in that high teens, low 20s. Field goal kicking is going to be huge in this game. And, of course, this is Lowther's first game back in Regina since that disaster against Montreal. So he'll be under a lot of pressure. Sergio Castillo's been money all season long. But the total, I think we might end up getting the total in there for a little lock shop partner parlay. This is the game that I have the toughest time with this week. And it's the Argos and the Ticats. Hamilton is a 5-point home underdog to Toronto. Argos escaping on the walk-off rouge last week to get to 6-4. Hamilton struggling at 2-9. Bo Levi had a few moments in the second half last week, but overall it has been really since the first couple games of the season where his receivers couldn't catch and he actually looked pretty good. It's been going in reverse. He's been benched. He's back in. But this is different. This is the Grey Cup for the Ticats this year. I mean, I think we all agree that they're probably not a playoff team, but there's something special about Labor Day. It is a great rivalry with the Argos. Their fans will be behind them. Can the Ticats hang with the Argos in this game and have a close one or potentially even win as a big home underdog, Matt?
Yeah, and Hamilton got their first win of the season against Toronto. And then they beat Edmonton, and that's where they got their first 2 wins. I think last week was their game where they showed up. No one was expecting anything against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The line was 10. I think everyone between WST and EST and our picks picked Winnipeg in that one to cover. I think almost everyone. Like, no one was betting on them. No one was thinking they were going to do something. And they almost won that football game. It came down to the final drive for Zach Collaros to win that game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I think there's going to be a letdown from the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I don't know if they could build off of that. I think that's just mentally, that was their chance to get that next victory. And with what the Toronto Argonauts have done, they're an up and down team. They're a team that is still very hard to figure out. But I liked what we saw from Chad Kelly last week. While he didn't throw a touchdown, he threw for over 300 yards. He looked pretty good. He was looking like Chad Kelly a bit from last year. Now he gets that extra week of practice to get ready for this game. And that team, the Riders' defense, great at the goal line. The Ticats aren't stopping the Argos at the 3 times or whatever it is. The Argos are going to get some points in this one. So because Chad Kelly, he doesn't have that rust that Nathan Rourke might have. He's playing well in this Argos team, and they'll probably be thinking of that loss that they already have to Hamilton. And I think of a letdown from the Ticats coming from this one. A 5 is a bit high, but I'm thinking the Argos cover this one. I think they could win by a touchdown, if not more, against the Ticats. I think we saw... The Ticats aren't that team that we saw last week. They are who we think they are, which isn't a very good football team. And so the only benefit of the doubt I will give Hamilton is maybe Chris Jones immediately already had an effect on that Ticats defense. We saw him do things. I tend to believe it was just the O-line had the injuries for Winnipeg, and that's how Hamilton was able to make that game closer.
To Chris Jones's credit, he has always schemed very well against the Bombers and Zach Collaros in particular.
So that's where I don't think it's yet the Chris Jones match. The Chris Jones magic for defense will come, I think, for Hamilton. It's going to take a little bit more time. So I would take the Argos -5.
You make some really good points. The Argos are a much better team than Hamilton. I don't know. This is a Labor Day play. This is a spot Labor Day play. Ticats show up, play their asses off, and it's a tight game, and maybe they lose, but I'll take the 5 points in this case. But again, I kept that out of any parlays I've done. This is, to me, is the toughest game because, as I said, you'll like home dogs. It's a pretty big number, but again, I think with Chad Kelly back, you make a great point that they left a lot on the table last week against Saskatchewan, and maybe that doesn't get left on the table against the Argos and Ticats. And now we go to the Elks and the Calgary Stampeders. And I will be honest, I am stunned that this line is still 3 in favor of the Calgary Stampeders. Listen, when we did our Guess the Lines, I thought this might be a pick'em. Like, I think Edmonton, even though they lost last week to Montreal, I think they showed they could hang with the best team in the league. And I think that further reinforces the fact that this team is going in the right direction, is on the up and up, and is right back in the thick of things in the West. And if there's one thing we've seen this year in the West, Matt, is that certainly over the course of the past month plus, any result that can make things actually tighter in the Western Division actually comes through. I'd like the Elks to win this game. Like, I like the Elks plus 137 on the money line, assuming Trey Ford is back. I think they did a smart thing, though, playing NBT last week, giving Ford an extra week to rest, to get healthy, to prepare. And to be honest, that Montreal defense is so good at times. I think, maybe just having NBT take those shots made a lot of sense. But I'm looking at the Elks going into this series against Calgary, knowing what's at stake. I actually think that they win both of these games. But I'm taking Edmonton plus 3. I love the Elks in this situation, and I think this division is going to be ridiculously close after Edmonton gets a win over the Stamps.
Elks take to the practice field in 6 minutes or so. First time this week, so we'll find out the status of Trey Ford. If Trey's not playing, if he's still not ready, does that change your mind on this game? Because I think there's a chance he might not be ready.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I may be less confident, but I think I'm still taking Edmonton. Even without Trey Ford, I heard this stat, and this is unbelievable. The Bombers have, I think, 16 offensive touchdowns this year. Edmonton has 34.
They lead the Canadian Football League. Montreal has 32.
it's not like MBT has done nothing. Like, I'm with you. You've sort of got me. And when you see what Trey Ford can do, he's dynamic, and I think he gives them the best chance to win. He's certainly the most entertaining player. But I don't think there's a huge drop-off with their ability to win this football game if MBT is in. I think their defense is coming around. And here's the thing. Like, I don't want to just say that Calgary are frauds, but I believe in like, I think their ceiling is the lowest of any of the 5 teams in the West.
Oh, I agree.
And listen, they had a great run at home early on. They lost to Ottawa last time. I think Edmonton is right there with the Ottawa Red Blacks, despite the records. As I say, I'm feeling good about the Elks in this final game, and I will take Edmonton on the road plus 3.5, and I don't even mind a little sprinkle on the money line, as I said.
So for me, like, yeah, if Trey Ford is in, it's an easy. I'm taking the Elks to cover this, no problem, absolutely. Again, if MBT is in, I don't like the Elks' chances as much to win because MBT to me is the quarterback. He's just going to get you close enough to lose. He's going to get you close enough where there's going to be that mistake that the Elks he just can't get it done. He just doesn't have that killer instinct in him, and we've seen it too often. But he gets you really close where it's a heartbreaker, but it's like a field goal or whatever. So for the Elks to cover this, I would take that at plus. I would take the Elks at +3, no problem. It's just the question of whether the Elks are going to win or lose. If you're looking at money line, that to me is the difference. If Trey Ford is playing, I think the Elks win this football game. If McLeod Bethel-Thompson's playing, I don't think they win this football game. Even though they did lose to Ottawa, this is where Calgary's good. This is where Calgary is. Why is Calgary in the conversation of any playoffs in the West? It's because they could win at home. They find a way to get it done at McMahon. Mm-hmm. And in the history of the Labor Day, since 2011, the Elks have won twice. You know, they won in 2011, they won in 2021, but Calgary finds a way to beat Edmonton in this game just almost always in the last 14 years or whatever it was, 13 years. So a +3, yes, I'm with the Elks. Who's winning this? It comes down to who's starting a quarterback, and we will find out over the course of the next few days the status of Trey Ford and whether he'll indeed be ready to go or not. Because if it's a muscle strain, we were looking at it on the Hangout today based on Dr. Google, it could be anywhere from 2 to 7 weeks. And it's a big wide margin of that.
Sure.
It's generally about 3 to 4. We're at 3 weeks now. So I'm hoping for Trey. I want Trey as the president of the Trey Ford fan club. I want him out there. If he's playing, I think they sweep. Well, I'm with you. I think he sweeps the 2 games against Calgary. But I just have a little bit of fear that we're going to see MBT on Monday.
You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about this Elks Calgary game and then looking ahead, knowing that there's a home and home with the Bombers and the Elks later on. How good is it going to be when Trey Ford's throwing at his brother in the Bombers secondary, who has been the top corner in the league so far this year? Yeah. That sign me up for that. Hey, by the way, as we've been talking, the BC, remember I said there's no way this plus 106 keeps hanging up. If you like BC, now's the time to get it, folks. BC's at -2. So a full point movement, -2. Ottawa's +2 at -110. So, I mean, listen, I know this is not a huge home field advantage, so maybe they're skewing it and not giving the 3 points. But we've got BC in there. I know you were on the Ottawa side. Now that this is 2, we're going to throw BC in with our play. We're going to put Saskatchewan and Winnipeg. We'll go with Dusty's under. The under 47.5. Matt and I both do like the Bombers, though, if you want to go that route. And then we will take the Elks at +3. And you know what? Maybe what we'll do, because we have to get on either side, like we have to have half points, maybe we'll make it 2.5 for BC, and we'll take the 3.5 for Edmonton. So even if they were to lose by a field goal in that game, it's a win instead of a push. If you just put that in right now with the -2 on BC, the under in the Bomber Rider game, and +3 for Edmonton, it's +596. Of course, you can use that 20% win boost, but I'll be sending this over to the Coolbet fellas to get that up in the Lock Shop Partner Parlay section in the exclusives, or the fellas might even throw it up on the main page for one of the combo cards. Tomorrow on the Lock Shop, Pat's going to be with me We will talk a little more CFL, college football week 1, Kobayashi versus Chestnut on the weekend.
Of course.
And I've been informed, I kind of forgot, but there's a big WWE event. And we'll have some lines on that. We'll take a look at it as well. So big one for it. Maddie, what do you have planned for the Labor Day game?
Well, I'm at Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge for Green and Gold kickoff post-game shows, myself and Jay Milne. So I'll be there watching the game on their wall of TVs. They also got the ponies going on the TVs on the side. And over the course of the last 3 weeks, I've been betting heavy on the ponies. Like each week, I'm increasingly betting more. Like as soon as the Elks game goes to a commercial, I go to the machine and I put a bet in and I'm watching. Last week, I was great. Last week, I wish I bet more because I was probably batting 700 or something on those races. I was having a good time with them. So that's where I'm going to be for that game. Sunday, I'll probably be at the office for watching the Bombers and the Riders just getting some things ready for expansion to 6-6 on Tuesday. What about you? What's the plans for Riders? Oh, you're going.
Oh, yeah. No, we've got a massive crew here, sold out tour. We're leaving early on Saturday morning. We'll get to Regina mid to late afternoon on Saturday afternoon. I would imagine the majority of people within our crew will absolutely floor it in Regina on Saturday. Then we'll get up, chill for a little bit, go get something to eat, start tailgating and getting ready for a 5 p.m. kickoff in Regina. Amazing. For what should be so much fun. And what's just, I mean, as I said, even the thought of this was preposterous 3 weeks ago. But the Bombers win this game. They come back to Winnipeg 6-6 and first place in the Western Division. It's going to be a good one. Check the exclusives for our partner Parlay Gang and enjoy the weekend in the Canadian Football League. I'll see you tomorrow in the Lock Shop. Maddie, thank you as always. Love chopping it up with you and
likewise.
Enjoy the 3-down game on the weekend and of course the college football on Saturday.
You as well. WST coming up at noon. Go check out him and Remus. They do some amazing things. This is the Lock Shop here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tune in iHeartRadio, as well as thanks to those watching on YouTube. We hit 10,000 subs. I know there's a discussion this morning on what could we get to, and Zach to come being the positive guy, thinking that we can go get 20. We could be at 20 by the time we get to this point next year. I think Eric was mentioning at one point that I am Mr. Conservative or something, and I am going to be taking a very conservative approach to this. If we're at 15,000 by next year, if we get 5,000 more, I will be absolutely thrilled. I think there does come a point where there's the line levels off just a little bit as you start that growth. But I hope Zach's right. I hope Zach is absolutely right. But again, Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, where every day is game day, 3 o'clock on Monday. Myself and Jay Milne will be live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sports, giving you pregame coverage of Elks Stamps as it's the Labor Day Classic. There's nothing that beats it. Bombers Riders is fun. Battle of Ontario between Toronto and Hamilton's great. Nothing beats. None of those top. Edmonton, Calgary, Labor Day. Even though Calgary has been dominating the series for the longest time, it still is just the game we're all watching for. It's the game we get ready for. We get the rematch the week after. For the longest time, the only rematch was the Battle of Alberta rematch because it was the best Labor Day game. And we'll see if the Elks can do it. As I mentioned, Trey Ford, we'll find out his status. They take to the practice. A couple minutes ago, they were supposed to take to the practice. So tomorrow on the morning show, we'll be able to, or throughout the day tomorrow, we'll be able to give it to you. What's even better, though, is they're on the field in a few minutes, and we don't have much coverage here to inform you on that. But as of next week, I don't have to say tune in tomorrow morning for full coverage on this. I just got to say keep listening to Edmonton Sports Talk as well. Full coverage for it is on Tuesday, EST afternoons with Hernan Salas, Joaquin Gage from 1 until 3, and then it's the Reed Wilkins Show with Jay Milne from 3 until 6 as Edmonton Sports Talk. We expand from 6 to 6 with live full local programming. We will still have our friends of EST on this station, so our evenings will still be covered. We've got the Oil Stream pre- and post-game shows, and as I mentioned, Green and Gold kickoff post-game shows. Hello Hockey is eventually going to return. We still have the VIP Golf Show for 2 more weeks until the golf season is over. It's good things and great things happening here at EST, and we can't be doing this without you, our viewers, our listeners. You guys are amazing, and glad we're in a position to be able to bring you more coverage here in Edmonton. And as I said, the Green and Gold Kickoff Show, that's at 3 o'clock. We'll be at Centric Casino for the game, watching it as well. So come join us. Watch it with Jay and myself. I think my folks are coming by. Well, they say they're coming by. Cheese and jalapeno smoky, $14 with waffle fries, $14.99. That is the game day special, including the 6 o'clocker lager at $6. Game day drafts, $5. And the daily special for Monday, I believe, is the loaded burger, if I recall correctly from Eric being at Monday Night Football last year. But that's all coming up on Monday. It's a great time. Labor Day, it's a wonderful time. And maybe the Elks could just inch a little bit closer to that playoff spot as the real start to the CFL season gets going. We all love the regular throughout the summer, but the season never truly begins until Labor Day, and the Elks are in a spot where we can actually say they're in the mix as we get to Labor Day. Coming up next year on Edmonton Sports Talk, it is two guys and a goalie. Tom Gazzola, Joaquin Gage, both fed from pizza, as well as Matt Cassian from his studio. That's to come here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Thanks for tuning in to The Lock Shop. On behalf of Huss, I'm Matt, and thanks to Zach behind the camera. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Two guys coming up in just a few minutes here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. Don't go anywhere.